There we go. Hello, everyone. It is I, the in-depth detective. Welcome to the show with that same name. It's been a while. But I'm back. And what better thing to come back with than an episode about a game that you could say inspired this entire series in a way. It did not, but it's still a detective noir kind of thing, if you know what I mean. I'm of course talking about LA Noire, a game beloved by many, and it was put out by Rockstar Games before, you know, they made other games that weren't just GTA 5. This game is mainly known for its revolutionary, very realistic facial animations, which, believe it or not, was actually very new for the time, along with its very realistic World War II, post-World War II setting. But did you know that this game had an incredibly troubled production? Like, did you know that LA Noire was actually in development for 7 years? Yeah, it was. And the story of LA Noire is also subsequently the story of its developer, Team Bondi, who, well, you'll see what happened to them by the end of this. Hello, everybody. Together we crack this case. The troubles of LA Noire. Before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell and leave a comment, or I will frame you. Brendan McNamara, director of the game The Getaway by Team Soho, returned to his home of Sydney, Australia. There he founded Team Bondi with 5 of his former colleagues over at Team Soho. At the time, Team Bondi were doing technical research before Sony had announced a deal with them to make an exclusive IP for their upcoming PlayStation 3. However, already the first road bump came when the agreement ended pretty much 2 years later despite signing a 3-game deal. Fast forward to July of 2005, and Team Bondi revealed their PS3 exclusive as LA Noire, a detective noir style game that takes place in LA, obviously, but also in a very distinct time period. And it is worth noting that while the agreement with Sony ended, LA Noire was still announced as an exclusive for the PS3, which was at the time new. However, in September of 2006, Rockstar Games expressed interest in publishing the title. They also wanted to label it as a next-gen crime thriller, and did not list any specific platforms. Along with the news came with a black and white trailer to give an idea of what the game was going to be like, and then the next year saw a more lengthy trailer drop. And while that trailer was quite intriguing, it wasn't really anything more than just a proof of concept. This proof of concept, however, really impressed Rockstar, and they scooped up the game, and it became a game from Rockstar as opposed to Sony. But this is only the beginning of things. LA Noire was officially announced to be coming to the PS3 and Xbox 360. In addition, the game was going to use a proprietary game engine from Team Bondi instead of using the Rockstar Advanced Game Engine as most other Rockstar games used at the time. The game also featured motion capture technology known as motion scan. This can record actors with 32 surrounding cameras to capture facial expressions from every angle, which results in a very realistic recreation of the human face in the game. Believe it or not, this was actually very groundbreaking at the time, because nothing else like this had ever been done in any game before. So yeah, LA Noire is kind of innovative. Building interiors were also based on real buildings in LA, especially with the Barclay Hotel, which Team Bondi studied for an accurate recreation. However, everything I listed is kind of a result of McNamara's overambitions. For example, With the new motion scan technology that they use for facial animations, this meant casting was more important than it normally would be for games. And that goes for everyone in the game, from the main characters to random pedestrians that have 2 lines of dialogue in the entire game. On top of that, the task was made pretty difficult for the actors they got. Aaron Staton, the actor for the main protagonist of the game, Cole Phelps, said that performers were only allowed to move their head about 45 degrees when doing the mocap. And since Team Bondi was an Australian-born studio, many of the actors were Australian, doing an American accent, and it was hard for them to sit still when doing so. In late 2009, these situations actually convinced Depth Analysis, who were behind Motion Scan, to move operations from Sydney to Los Angeles. After this, Team Bondi used more custom technology to do the dynamic weather settings and the day-to-night cycles. Now I know what you're saying, DPX, and look, let me stop you right there, because you addressed me as detective, okay? Detective, this all sounds difficult, it sounds for a difficult development, but this doesn't really sound exactly like an arduous development that you set it out to be at the beginning of the video. Well, many employees had to endure many hardships, and we're going to get to that now. While LA Noire was a very challenging game to make with the many innovations, the people behind the game were, certainly not having fun. Many complaints came to light after the game had launched, and these complaints were, well, not good to say the least. Crunch was serious during the game's development, as according to an anonymous employee, many staff were working 6-day weeks and others worked for 10 to 12 hours a day, including the weekends. On top of that, compensation was very low. In addition to the horrible hours and conditions, though, in an article from IGN shortly after the game released, several anonymous developers from Team Bondi publicly discussed the managerial style of the studio and the studio's staff turnover rates. Some even claimed that McNamara was controlling and verbally abusive. None of this was a good look for Rockstar, and especially for Team Bondi. But I kind of jumped ahead a bit, because all these reports, as I kind of said earlier, were after the game had come out. So was all this hardship, all these troubles behind the scenes, really worth it? After a hellacious development cycle that had been mostly unknown to the consumers at the time, LA Noire finally came out for PS3, Xbox 360, and PC on May 17th, 2011. Holy shit! At the time of recording, at least, man, we're just a few weeks away from this game's 11th birthday. Happy birthday, LA Noire! And it was a success. The game received glowing reviews from many outlets such as IGN, GameSpot, Giant Bomb, and more, and currently holds an 89 out of 100% on Metacritic. Many people praise the facial animations and the realistic Los Angeles setting. John McElroy of Joystick called the technology, quote, nothing short of revolutionary. GameSpy's Ryan Scott considered the game to be, quote, one of the strongest stories Rockstar's ever published. And Giant Bomb's Brad Shoemaker called it, quote, among the best in the business. On top of that, LA Noire actually sold nearly 5 million copies. However, the victory celebration was cut rather short. The IGN article came out, as I mentioned earlier, and discussion changed. People weren't talking about the game as much and how good it is, but rather unsafe working conditions. As a result of the IGN article, along with a group of former Team Bondi employees, creating a website known as LANoireCredits.com, which listed over 100 names not in the game's credits, the International Game Developers Association started an investigation of Team Bondi. In case you don't know, the International Game Developers Association, who I will be calling the IGDA, are a non-profit professional association who specialize in making sure all game developers are working under safe conditions. And while nothing substantial came from the investigation that I was able to find, in July of 2011, many confidential emails were leaked. In these leaked confidential emails, they kind of revealed that the relationship between Rockstar and Team Bondi kind of grew a bit sour. Even once said that Rockstar were planning on making Team Bondi into, Rockstar Sydney. But later on, Rockstar started to not really like the direction Team Bondi were taking things in a business aspect. So yeah, they never really saw eye to eye necessarily. This was further proven by an anonymous source stating that Rockstar, quote, saved the project, but the company's relationships were badly damaged, and it was quite clear that future collaborations were very unlikely. More and more came out about their shattered business relationship. But shortly after the reports of the severed relationship between Rockstar and Team Bondi, Team Bondi were looking for a buyer. But one problem came. No studio seemed to really want to buy Team Bondi after all these negative reports. So in October of 2011, Team Bondi entered liquidation. Team Bondi owed as much as 1.4 million Australian dollars to unpaid creditors, with unpaid wages or bonuses accounting for over 75% of those debts. With more debt paying, Team Bondi, they had officially closed their doors. It's a rather sad ending to, in a sense, a success story. LA Noire, and by extension Rockstar and Team Bondi, had many things going against them. An exclusivity deal with Sony that fell through, to technology that video games have never seen at the time, to crazy working conditions. The more I think about it, it's astonishing that LA Noire actually came out at an acceptable state and was even good. Hell, great. Now, most games you see use motion capture and take the face of an actor and place them on the main character of the game and have it look so realistic. But back then in 2011, that was a huge risk. But like I said at the beginning of the video, the story of LA Noire is also the story of Team Bondi. Because while the launch and reception of LA Noire was cause for celebration, that game was kind of the exact thing that kind of, shut down Team Bondi, which is unfortunate. And I don't know, I guess with all the negativity that went around it, Rockstar didn't really seem keen on, even acknowledging that the game existed until a few years ago, where they re-released the game on Switch, PS4, and Xbox One, and even made a VR game called LA Noire: The VR Case Files, which was basically the same game, except many parts of the game were modified to allow VR support, which I think is pretty cool and shocking also. As for Brendan McNamara, he, couldn't make LA Noire 2, so he went on to find another studio to make the spiritual successor to LA Noire. Let me just find the name of it. Whore of the Orient. No, seriously, that's what it's called. While film production studio Kennedy Miller Mitchell actually absorbed the project, with all the negativity surrounding, LA Noire, that project never saw the light of day. Now, fast forward today, 11 years later, and I feel like there are two things we can learn from LA Noire. One is, working conditions. We need to strive for a positive and safe working environment in video games, and everywhere, really. Since then, Unfortunately, crunch culture has not gone away, and I hate to say it, but I don't think it's going away anytime soon. But I think it should. The other thing we can learn from this is simple, but I think very true and effective. Hard work pays off. Yeah, maybe don't endure these hardships, but LA Noire was truly innovative and revolutionary for its time, and all the negativity kind of overshadowed the game initially. And for all the negativity surrounding the game, it actually helped push the industry forward. And for that, I think we owe a lot to this game. And that was the troubles of LA Noire. And that'll do it for this episode of The In-Depth Detective. It's been a little while. I've been gone for a little bit. This show was on hiatus. I announced the rise and fall of Konami, which has not been canceled, but that's gonna be being worked on in the background. Anyway, shout out goes to ML, somehow guessing this first try in the Discord server. I'm gonna end this video now because I have the fucking hiccups and I hate that shit. But yeah, if you want to see any game, movie, show, anything, leave a comment down below. Anyways, I am the In-Depth Detective, and case closed.